everyone. We are Ilana and
Jason.
And this is Ex Post Watcho. Welcome back. This week we are watching a movie that I was pretty obsessed with when I was in, I guess, 9th grade. And that is Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Guy Ritchie's first feature film. Jason, have you seen this movie?
I've seen this movie easily like 50 times. I watched
50.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's a little high, but like I watched and rewatched this movie multiple times. It kind of falls into the a category of movies. This classification might only make sense to me, but it's like dumb guy movies from my early 20s. So like this and like The Boondock Saints and Fight Club and like all that kind of shit. But this I think is at the top in terms of those movies.
Yeah, I loved this one. So it's basically a card player loses a lot of money, ends up in some trouble, and then they kind of get a little group together to rob like a kind of a small-timey gang, and hijinks ensue and all kinds of madness happens. And it's an English film. I think for me, that's interesting that you sort of like clump them into that category, which I totally agree with. For me, I always think of this in comparison to Tarantino's films. And I think it's because, so this was 98. Tarantino just blew up in the 90s, right? So it was like from 92 to 97, from like Reservoir Dogs to Jackie Brown. He like was doing something every single year, whether he was directing or writing or doing both. And so many people I knew that I would talk about movies with were obsessed with him. And I wasn't quite sure about Tarantino in the 90s, really. Like, I watched his films and I enjoyed them, but it wasn't, I didn't love them. I'm that person who I think Inglourious Basterds is his best film. Yeah. A lot of people have a lot to say about that. But to me, this is sort of comparable in the sense that it's a writer-director, and it is sort of like these cool guys going on this kind of rough and tumble adventure. Everybody's a little bit raw. Everybody's a little bit on the outs of society a little bit. Shady characters, humor, pretty violent. And also just flashy, kind of just looks really nice. A lot of tricks. I don't remember a ton about the substance of this, but it's been a while since I watched this. I think probably when I was in my early 20s, which was like 4 or 5 years ago. So I think, like I probably haven't seen this in at least 10 years, probably more like 15. So I'm really excited to watch this again, see if because I watched this obsessively when I had the DVD. I watched it a lot. It was also around a time, I'm getting really excited. I'm just rambling, but it was an exciting time for me. I really thought I was going to become a filmmaker. That's what my passion was at this point in time. And this was one of those it was one of the first contemporary films I saw that got me really excited, because I started getting into film with really classic sort of golden age of Hollywood films, and then moved into stuff that was made in the 70s. And this was one of the first contemporary pieces that I saw that I got really excited about and became a bit obsessed with.
Yeah, I can totally see why this is the kind of movie that would appeal to someone who, is young and wants to be a filmmaker. I think the comparison to Tarantino is definitely accurate. I think Guy Ritchie to me is kind of like in a very similar category for like the reasons you pointed out, like in terms of characters, like the kind of stories they tell. It's like it's criminal stuff, and there's a lot of swearing, and it's usually pretty funny, and it looks cool. And I think that's the part that I think definitely when I was young, like excited me a lot, was just like all the cool editing shit you can do. Just like how many neat ways can you film a scene, which can be, I feel like there was this period of like Tarantino and Guy Ritchie that sort of morphed into like the 2000s, where there was just a lot of like shitty movies that tried to like be visually, whoa, it's a crime movie with a lot of characters and it looks kind of cool, but like they just all kind of sucked. But yeah, how do you feel about Guy Ritchie in general? Have you watched his other stuff?
Oh God. To be honest, you just asked me that, and the only thing that I can think of right now is Snatch, which I know I liked. What the fuck else did he do?
Okay, so he did Snatch, which was also a pretty big... I think that movie is just as highly regarded as Lock, Stock, and came out like 2 years later. Then he did Swept Away with Madonna.
Right, I didn't see that. I didn't even bother.
I have not seen that. Someday I got to watch it because I heard it's a huge piece of shit. It was an interesting choice. Then he came back in 2005 with Revolver, which is the movie that has Jason Statham with hair, which actually looks pretty damn good. It's interesting to see Jason Statham with hair.
Sounds unsettling. I don't know if I want to see that. I maybe did. What year was that?
2005.
I might have seen that.
It's not very good. So I actually watched about a half hour of it last night. And it's sort of like, it's got the cool style stuff going on, you know, like he knows how to make a cool looking movie with like the music and just sort of the vibe of it. But it's an incoherent mess. Like just the plot is kind of nonsense. It didn't go over well. Then he did Rock and Rolla in 2008, which was like the same kind of movie, like another sort of crime one. That one actually is pretty good. That one I think holds up.
Is that Gerard Butler?
Yes, Gerard Butler. Tom Hardy's in it.
I saw that one. Yeah.
And then after that, he kind of went on to do a lot of like franchises. So he's got the two Sherlock Holmes movies, The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
I did see those. Yeah, I saw that.
I haven't seen that. King Arthur in 2017, and then this one, I had no idea he was behind this. Aladdin from 2019, written and directed by Guy Ritchie.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Weird floaty face Will Smith on the Genie trailer.
So, but maybe he did it because he has kids, right?
I'm not really interested in why. It's just the fact.
I am. Why?
No, it is an interesting choice, I guess. Because, like, the other ones, like, okay, Sherlock Holmes, totally get it. Like, and he brought his sort of style to that.
Yeah, I liked those movies. I liked The Man from U.N.C.L.E. as well. It was kind of fluffy, but I thought it was entertaining. I really had a fun time watching that one.
Henry Cavill is in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer, and I'm not Vikander. She's lovely.
That's a handsome sounding movie.
Oh yeah, it is quite. It looks amazing. It's very stylized. It's a lot of fun. It's one of those movies that I would like. You know, those movies you put on when you're kind of like, I'm tired. I feel like I could fall asleep, but I kind of need some background noise. What's kind of pretty and fun and not too stupid. And that was one of those movies for me.
I actually watched last weekend The Gentleman, which is his newest kind of movie amongst the theme of his traditional stuff, I guess. Like it's sort of a return to form, I guess you could say. It was okay.
Like I haven't watched that one yet.
I don't know. I really like Guy Ritchie. I love Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and I think like his other movies, they definitely have a cool visual style, and he can definitely put together a movie that is compelling in that way. But with that most recent one, I was just like, man, this really is just like kind of the same thing, you know?
It's
like,
just a bit of a one-trick pony.
A little bit repetitive. I think the theme of like Lock, Stock, Snatch, Revolver, Rock and Roller, Aladdin, and The Gentleman. I assume Aladdin is a British crime movie. God, that would be so good.
He really took his own style, created a vision for where he wanted to go, and he just did it.
Will Smith, I'm going to need you to swear a lot as the genie.
That one, I actually did not know that was him. That's interesting. Yeah, I like Guy Ritchie. I hope I like this movie as much as I used to. Because it was a favorite because it has been so long. When's the last time you think you saw this?
Probably like a couple years ago. Like 2 years ago at the latest.
So it's probably going to hold up for you when you watch it.
Yeah, I know what I'm expecting. I think maybe my concern with this one is just that because what I think it does well is like visual style, snappy dialogue, kind of like it's an experience, but I don't know if you can explain it to someone. You know what I mean? If I had to like explain why this movie is good to someone, I'd be like, it looks really cool and they say a lot of funny things.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. I had the soundtrack also. This is a great soundtrack on this.
Absolutely.
Like, it's almost like an extended music video is a bit how I remember it, which I think is great. I love when they really integrate a lot of music well into a film, and I think Guy Ritchie's, whoever he works with, I don't know the name of all his team, but however he works with his team on that, I think that's something that's usually pretty successful with his films. So I think that's probably also something I'm going to be keeping an eye out for, because that was a big part of it for me when I was younger.
Yeah, I can say going into it, the music in it is great. There's just a lot of really good songs, a lot of obscure like songs I had never heard of outside of that movie, but they fit well in the movie and they're actually good songs on the soundtrack.
Yeah. I'm really okay. I'm now, you know what? The last movie we watched, I was a little disappointed, but now I'm excited again. I think it'll hold up. I hope it will hold up. I know that I found the lead very handsome when I was younger. So if at the very least there's going to be some good music and a couple of nice faces, and I think I'll have at very least a decent time watching this.
It's the story of 4 cute boys.
That's exactly how you should describe it.
Yeah.
Why are you so confused? That's how it should be described. The story of 4 cute boys.
They get into trouble.
I'm a little bit concerned about the accents, because the older I get, the more challenging it is for me to understand an accent that is not like a Canadian or American, and sometimes not even American, like or Eastern Canadian accents sometimes give me trouble now in my older age. So I'm hoping I can get through this without having to turn subtitles on, but
what the
realistically,
fuck is a cur?
Yeah, I may need to roll the tape back, as it were, a few times to catch everything. But I might just have to, because this is a pretty fast moving movie also. And I'm not, again, in my old age at 26. It's hard. Anyway. Yeah. And do you have anything else to add before we go and crack this one open?
Nope. It's a good movie. So I hope you like it. If you don't, I'll be very disappointed in you.
Okay. Our friendship may depend on my reaction to this movie.
No pressure.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go and do it. Oi! Welcome back, you fucking cunts. I don't know. I just finished watching this.
Does anybody actually say the C word in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh.
Rory does twice.
Oh, yep. I remember now.
Yeah. Anyway, we just finished watching Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Just played a clip from the movie. Jason, I'll ask you first. Because I know you've seen this often over the past several years. How was this viewing experience for you?
It was good. I love this movie. I still love this movie. It holds up in every way. I have almost no complaints about it. It's perfect. QED. Wow. Perfect. All right. No, it's good. I really like it. I think it's just a really it's just good for what it is. It's very low budget. It looks low budget, but not in a crappy way. It looks like they did the most they possibly could with what they had. I think the appearance of it actually, adds to the charm of it. I think it's a ton of characters that you they're all cast perfectly and they all gel together really well. It's funny. The plot is the plot. It's unnecessarily complicated, but kind of not really that complicated. Yeah, it's a good time. I love it. Great movie. Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you just said. I
this, like, as I was watching it, it really, really came back to me. Like, I really watched the shit out of this when I was younger. So, even though I hadn't seen it in a really long time, yeah, really came back. But one thing I didn't, so you were talking about like the quality. For some reason, I remembered this as being like the colors being really saturated and it being a very bright, vibrant film, which is not the case. Everything's very like grainy and muted, and there are these
brown.
like
everything's brown.
Yeah, it's brown. It's a little blue sometimes, which I didn't remember it as, which I don't know why. Maybe just the quality of film has increased, like digital film has increased those things so much. And I guess this was shot on actual film and digitally. So, but anyway, other than that, I agree with you. I really had so much fun watching this. Like, I don't even know that I'm going to try sum up the plot. It's just like a shit ton of sort of small time crooks and criminals and a lot of British dudes running around, getting into all sorts of trouble. Like, how do you sum this up?
Let me ask you a question. Did you have any trouble following the plot to this movie? Because I'm pretty sure the first time I saw it, I understood things, but then like toward the second half, I kind of was just confused as to what was going on.
The first time, so I tried watching this a while ago, like right after we did the first part of it, and I was so tired and my computer wasn't agreeing with me. So I was like kind of frustrated. And because I wasn't like super paying attention to the movie, I was very confused. I was like, what the fuck is going on? This time I got the plot, but like, especially at first, like they throw so much at you and it's like, here's all these dudes. And I needed like a flow chart to figure out like how they all fit into the story sometimes. Like even at the end, this time around, I was kind of like, wait, where did this guy come from? Who's he working with? What is his goal here? What's going on? So yeah, it's like really, it's not that complicated. It's just there's so much going on that sometimes it was sort of like felt like watching Game of Thrones. Like Game of Thrones was just like every episode was like a new old white guy with a beard. And I was like, wait, is this the same guy? But it's a different guy. I felt a little bit like that watching this time. Like I wasn't confused, but there were moments where I was like, wait, do I actually know what's going on or am I confused? I don't think I was. My ramblings probably make it sound like I was.
I remember when I first saw it, okay, let me try and summarize the plot to this movie. So you've got these four guys that are like, they're buds and they're kind of like, you know, small time criminals who's like pool a bunch of money together. So one of them convinced he's going to win and win them all money, and then says you have a wee Harry back $500,000 card game, and then says and loans them money in the card game, and then simultaneously those two guys other plot where the guys live next door to playing toys, decide they're going to go rob these guns, drug dealer robbers after they do that robbery, and they're going to sell the weed from the robbery, and then he's trying to like articulate his plan, and then it turns out that then the breaker actually owned the grow up, so now you have like pretty late, and you know the then it's just like okay, I gotta go kill these guys. Like, so I think by the time I got to that part of the movie, the first time I saw it, I just had no idea what was going on. I'm like, why are all these people going after each other, and what's going on here?
Yeah, I think the first time what I remembered from this is I thought that those four, we were calling them like the main cast. It does sort of center around them with the like card player and his friends. But I remember them being featured a lot more heavily in this when really it's like such a huge ensemble piece and we're following all these different stories, which was kind of interesting because I really thought it was really focused on them and their story.
I mean, they definitely are the protagonist. They're the first people you meet, you get narration about who they are, and like the plot kind of does revolve around their kind of struggle. But yeah, there's so many characters in it that you're kind of like bouncing around that it's not entirely about them. So I think the best way to break this movie down is maybe talk about the characters, because that's basically what this movie is. So the main crew is Bacon, played by Jason Statham, and I think this was his first movie role. And then I don't remember the names of the other actors, but I do recognize them from odds and ends. But you've got Eddie, who's the card player, and he's apparently a wizard at cards. Soap, who's like apparently not involved in crime, but like maybe has some kind of dark past. And Tom, who is a guy who steals stuff, I think, and sells it. He's got a little shop full of stolen goods in the back that he deals with. And they're kind of like, I think they're the heart of the movie.
Yeah, they're super likable. Like, just their dialogue, their energy together is so fun to watch. I think maybe if like something upon this rewatching that didn't quite hold up as much for me is like, I think that's what I really loved about the movie was the energy that the cast had together. And I kind of wanted a little bit more of those four. But still, when they were on, it was so good. It's kind of weird seeing Jason Statham, like he opens the movie and he's so accessible here. Like now he's like this big action star kind of guy, but he's so funny and he has such good timing. Like, this is my preferred Jason Statham.
Yeah. I still think you need to check out Revolver, Jason Statham with the hairpiece, because that's just a sight to behold. But yeah, like it opens with him giving his fun little speech with the stolen goods, and that's good.
Yeah, with Ed, who I was in love with when I was a teenage girl. But like watching it this time, he's kind of a brat.
Yeah.
He's not terrible. He's not unlikable, I didn't think, but he's just a little like, he's a brat.
So when something I noticed, I guess, was when he shows up to the card game, Hatchet Harry says something about his father, and then he's like, I didn't know your dad. It's just this like really shitty comment. And it's like, this guy's like a psycho criminal killer guy, and you're just like shit talking him like that. Yeah, and just like they keep calling him a dozy brat, I think, which sort of like, he's kind of got a little bit of a blasé attitude sometimes about like the seriousness of the situation they're in.
Yeah, I think that I viewed that differently when I was younger. I thought he was maybe a little more with it than he was. And I really hated the character Tom when I was a kid, and I have no idea why. Because I liked him so much. I think he's so funny and interesting. But I just thought he was such a dick when I was a teenage girl. I don't know.
So could it be because Soap seems to like really hate him and make fun of him the whole time? Like they kind of all like poke fun at him. There's this recurring bit where they keep calling him fat. He's like the fat man. You look like you're fat, but you're not. So I wonder like... maybe it was just like the other characters kind of like, or at least one of the characters openly showing disdain for him. Maybe
that it was like almost like peer pressure from these fictional older British men.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But he's good. He's like the kind of the brains guy, or no, yeah. He sort of like has his stuff together, and he just coordinates a lot of the logistics of everything that's going on.
I kind of liked how they had their part to play, but it wasn't like super...
I'm the demolition guy.
Yeah. It was just like these four blokes, as they say, across the pond. Just kind of hanging out and being really kind of stupid together. And that's what made them so fun. Like they were on the same playing field. Is that how the phrase goes?
Sure.
They're on the same level. They're all on the same level. No one's actually like that smart or stupid or whatever.
I think each of them like kind of brings something. I think with the exception of Jason Statham's character, not to say that he's like some useless guy, but if you look at like the characters, you got like Eddie's like the card player guy who kind of, I mean, I guess he gets him into the whole mess, but like, that's his skill set. And then like Soap is like a very organized guy, and when things get real, he's like, he gets the knives and the masks and all this stuff. Like he's kind of like really taking it seriously and planning it. And like Tom is dealing with all the like logistics of getting the weed sold and getting the guns. But Bacon is just like, he's just part of the crew, you know? He's Jason Statham, so he's great. But I'm like, what? Can you tell me exactly what you do here? What is your role?
I feel like he's a kind of a babysitter. Like, I feel like he kind of keeps them all in check. Because whenever any of them get kind of hot, he kind of he's the peacekeeper, I think.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
He's a bit of the daddy of the group, I think, maybe.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes is when Tom is in the bar shortly after they realize how much trouble they're in, and he's like telling the story. He's outlaying this scheme of like selling fictitious dildos to people and then like returning them, but like making the check have a very like vulgar name so no one will actually cash it. I think my favorite thing is he just refers to them as these dills.
Yeah, they use a lot of casual language in this, which I thought was great. Like, I thought one thing I hate about movies that makes it, the thing that will kill it for me is like shitty dialogue. And I really thought the dialogue was great. And this movie is so fucking English. Like, there was clearly no attempt at making like an Americanized version of a film, which I actually really appreciated. And there's so much, there's English language that we don't use well, I'm sure they don't use it in the States. We don't use it in Canada. So some of that charm as well is I think from the fact that it's very culturally specific to that place in the world.
Yeah, there was a lot of like the rhyming stuff, which was kind of fun. I like when Nick the Greek is talking to Rory Breaker and he says like, you show up here with that what's going on look on your Chevy Chase. There's also the word claret shows up a bunch of times, and I figured out from the context they were talking about blood, but I had to look it up, and it's a kind of wine.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even notice that. I saw it in your notes. I didn't notice it when I was watching the movie.
It's an educational experience. They also, I mean, there is that one scene where I don't know if this was like meant to be for like American audiences or it's just kind of a bit, but there's the whole scene where Tom is talking to a guy at a bar and the guy is telling him the story about Rory Breaker, you know, having a confrontation with another guy in the bar, and they're just using like intense rhyming. And if you're just listening to the raw audio, I probably wouldn't have any idea what is really being said, so they subtitle it. Yeah, that's a fun bit.
Yeah, I like that. It's like everything's a little bit flashy in this, obviously, like Guy Ritchie, and even that, but it's like you can still keep up with it. It doesn't ever get too overwhelming. And yeah, I think that like the performances, they're a little stylized, but they're still pretty grounded and pretty subtle considering this Guy Ritchie style, which I really, like, you're talking about that card scene where they cheat and Ed loses. I thought there were those kind of quiet moments between Harry and Ed that were just so great, like really nuanced kind of moment where it was just the two of them and just a still camera on them, and we weren't like doing an action sequence. So yeah, I think there's like this nice balance in this film of like those flashy Guy Ritchie kind of moments, those things he's really known for, and stillness and balance of actual human beings that you actually are kind of on board for and you go along with. That's another big peeve of mine in some of these like more actiony cool guy movies, is that everyone's kind of a dick. Everyone's a bit too slick. You don't really care about them. But yeah, these guys just seemed like someone you might know. And so they were more interesting to watch, I thought.
The main characters all seemed really cool to me when I was younger. Yeah. And now I'm like, I realize I'm basically the age of those characters. And I'm like, if I were living that life, would I be cool? Like the apartment that Eddie and Bacon live in is like, I mean, everything in this movie just is like dirty and run down. But their apartment in particular, it's just full of a bunch of like old antique crap. Like there's a bathtub ancient bathtub leaned up sideways against the wall. I never really noticed like what their place looked like until this time.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be like any actual proper furniture in it like most people would have. I saw no beds.
Yeah, it just looks like
couches.
Yeah, that couch looks like they just saw it outside waiting to be picked up by a garbage truck and drag that inside.
The life of a crook. I don't know.
So those are our main guys, and then we've got a bunch of other characters. So there's like Harry and Barry the Baptist as the big scary mean guys. I love Barry. He's great.
There's a Harry, Barry, and Gary in this.
Yeah, that got a little confusing.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked all those characters too. I hated Harry, but I think we're supposed to hate Harry.
Yeah, Harry's like, he is a huge prick, but he's like the top criminal that everyone is afraid of, so he kind of just gets to be a huge prick.
Yeah.
And like Barry looks like a giant gorilla. Like he's just like this massive, like when he's like screaming at Gary and Dean. I love Gary and Dean. They're two of my favorite characters in this movie.
They're a lot of fun.
They're just like these dumbass thieves. And they're like, we rob post offices and steal cars. And then they just end up in this like horrible situation that isn't really their fault.
Gary's hair. Chekhov's shitty wig. As soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, fuck, what's going on with his hair?
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I was like, and then he gets shot through the hair.
Yeah, and I like that he like refuses to put on a mask because he spent like 100 pounds on his hair, which is a lot of money, especially 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was like 220 quid on his haircut. It just looked it was so glaringly like horrible and weird and bad. And I was like, this doesn't make sense for this character. And then when he got shot, I was like, oh, there was a reason for it. A gag. It was a gag. It was a bit.
Yeah, it kind of is like one of the silly things in the movie, but I've so internalized it at this point that like it doesn't even like occur to me that like his hair looks weird when you first see him. Like, oh, that's that dude's hair.
Yeah.
He's just a weird guy who wants to have a perm.
Yeah, that's allowed.
There's also the crew of the robbers who rob the drug dealers. And they're like kind of, that's an unhealthy relationship that's happening there. Like Dog and Plank and all those other guys. Like that guy's a really good villain, I think. I like him. I don't like him, but I like him. I like his character.
Yeah. They were the darkest characters, I think. Like they really did kind of scare me. They made me uncomfortable. Like Harry's still kind of ridiculous. Like he owns a sex club, porn shop, whatever. Everything's plated in gold. It's over the top. It's like Scarface, but he's sitting there instead of like money and cocaine. It's just dildos everywhere. So he's still a little bit of a caricature, but yeah, those other characters, they were a little bit more believable as like, maybe this is what I don't know. I don't know what criminal life in London at this time would be. Are they in London?
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
they're in England someplace, and they did kind of make me uncomfortable. Like these are this actual scary people. These are the guys that I should actually be afraid of, or that these characters I'm fearing for these other characters because of. Wait, that makes sense. They were scary.
Yeah, like Dog is definitely probably a psychopath. Just the way he behaves. Like you actually see him like, you know, they've got a guy tied up, strung upside down that they're robbing, and then like you don't see it, but like you see him throw a knife at the tied up guy. It's like, good God, that's dark. And then he bullies all his coworkers around. They need to unionize those guys because he treats them like shit. And I think he keeps all the money. I doubt he's paying them well. Yeah,
there's not a fair distribution there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay, you brought up the knife and you don't actually see it. This movie was not as violent as I remembered it. Like, I remembered it like very aggressively violent and, you know, stylized, but still kind of gory. And we didn't actually see a lot of the violence happen. We saw more of the aftermath. Like there were some exceptions, but that actually kind of shocked me because I had remembered it so differently.
Were you picturing like a Tarantino, like blood splattering kind of thing?
I think more like that. Yeah. And it really wasn't. I thought it was just as like effective, though. I don't really like excessive gore and violence. I don't really think it, like in an action movie, I don't think that it really makes sense to overdo it for me. Maybe that's why I prefer Guy Ritchie over Tarantino in terms of like their older work. Maybe I don't know if that's even accurate, but maybe why I don't love Tarantino as much as a lot of people love Tarantino.
Tarantino is definitely like, the violence is more pronounced. If you think about like Reservoir Dogs is like Tim Roth bleeding from the stomach for like 40 minutes of the movie, and like Pulp Fiction has people get shot a lot in that movie, and there is blood that you see. Whereas like, in this case, there is a lot of like violence that happens, but for the most part, it's like you see a gun go off and you just know that someone got shot. You know, like it ends with like the big shootout scene where everything kind of converges, and I don't think you actually see anyone get shot, but you do see like a room full of dead bodies, and like, you know, the dude opens the door at one point, and like the blood just kind of like hits him in the face while the gunfight is happening. And then like Rory gets killed by Plank because Plank is on the ground, he thinks dead, and he rolls him over and he like points his gun at him and the camera, and then you hear a gunshot. And so it's all kind of like stylized like that. I think with the exception of when Dean and Gary at the end end up like attacking Harry, and then like they get shot and dude gets an axe in the back. That was pretty explicitly violent.
Yeah, that shootout, there was a little bit of like, you could see the guns, the gunshot, the bullets. Jesus Christ, the bullets. You could see them, but yeah, mostly not that bad. Not too much blood. And it's kind of interesting to stay on like the person who's like throwing the knife or shooting the gun instead of going to the person who's being shot or stabbed. It's maybe more interesting maybe in all cases. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so you were just talking about the violence for a second. So,
Vinnie Jones, I think this was his first role. He was like a soccer player in Wales. Sorry, a football player. And he went on to have a bit of a career after this. But yeah, he's like he's Harry's enforcer guy who goes out and collects debts and stuff like that. Kind of seems like his job and Barry the Baptist sort of overlap a bit, but whatever. Apparently they've got it all figured out. But he's good. I like it. Feels
like Barry's on the way out and Big Chris is on the way in.
Yeah. Barry was going to retire. That was his last day. That was his last day on the job. And then he got killed. Yeah, I really liked Vinnie Jones in this. He looks so tough in that, like, I don't know. It felt very 90s tough guy. And I love his relationship with his son is just like this recurring thing. It's so cute. Like, he's so worried about his son. He's taking him on all of these adventures in crime. But he's like, watch your language, buckle your seatbelt. It's pretty cute. I thought that was a sweet theme throughout the movie. I like his giant leather jacket. That definitely feels dated.
Yeah.
It's like pre-Matrix, I guess. But that was kind of like, the style.
Yeah.
6 foot long leather jacket, and then his kid's got the matching one. And you get the satisfaction of watching him bash dude's head in with the car door at the end.
Oh, God, yeah. But again, you don't really see it happen. You just see him.
Yeah, the camera's like pointed up. So you're seeing it from the perspective of the head getting bashed in, which is kind of, that's kind of bad. It's kind of dark.
Yeah.
And they basically like recreated that shot in Snatch. Like I think that's a pretty...
I can't remember that movie very well.
Yeah, Vinnie Jones is in that. He plays a very similar character named Bullet Tooth Tony, except he's got he gets shot a bunch of times and then he survives. So he has the bullets turned into teeth, and his two front teeth are like gold.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And the opening shot you see of him is like the exact same like POV perspective of like a car door getting slammed in, and he's just like murdering some dude.
Yeah. Like this definitely felt like, because this was Guy Ritchie's first film, right? Yeah. This really did feel like a first feature film, like where he's like really experimenting and just kind of going all out and using all his tricks maybe and seeing kind of what sticks and what's right for him and finding his storytelling style. So maybe that's why some of that was repeated because Snatch was his follow-up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this movie had a budget, I can't remember, but it's like £1 million or something like that. It might even be less than that, $1 million or something. I was reading about this, and apparently it was supposed to have like a really big budget at first, and then something kind of happened, and that all fell through, and then it ended up being like a low budget thing, which I think actually works to the movie's credit. And I think what is interesting about this movie is that like he's known for doing a lot of like visual tricks and stuff like that, and certainly in later movies like they kind of get more and more elaborate. There's this scene in Revolver. God, Revolver is just, it's a shitty movie, but like there's parts...
You're obsessed.
I know. There's just stuff about it that's really cool. And like there is one scene where there's this like kind of heist thing going on. Ray Liotta's in it too, and he's part of that scene. But anyway, like part of it's like...
Ray Liotta's in it?
Yeah. He's kind of like the villain in it. But they actually like even bring in some like animation in that part. Like it gets really like strange and surreal. Whereas this movie like has, I have a list here of like all the cool neato Guy Ritchie effect shots, and they really are just like working with what you have, I guess. So like, there's at the beginning, there's like when they're introducing the characters and they're running away from the cops, they just have this like slow-mo shot where they filmed it at like 1 million frames per second and then slowed it down, and it actually looks like the picture quality looks like shit when they do that. But I think that actually like kind of works with it. And then there's like the card game scene, and the way that's shown is like there's just a lot of like fast forward and cameras rotating and stuff like that, and the music is really carrying it. And then when Eddie loses and basically has a panic attack and he's like walking out of there, they do that thing. I don't know what this technique is called, but it's where you like attach the camera to the person so that when they move around, it's like always just pointed at their face.
Just like the body cam, body mount kind of.
Yeah, and that has like a really kind of specific look to it. And then like when Eddie's telling the guys at the bar right after the card game that they lost, I love the way he does that because basically the narrator explains it, and then they just show a bunch of still frames of like they clearly filmed the scene, maybe even with dialogue, and then they're just like they just showed like 6 or 7 still frames of him just like looking like kind of sad while the guy's explaining it. Just a lot of like little things like that. Like they're not really, it's not high tech like stuff. It's just little tricks like that, but they really do kind of give it something, make it interesting. Or like, and then there's a scene in the bar after they've done the robbery. They go get drunk at the bar and they're like partying and celebrating. And they just have like this drum and bass track playing while like they just alternate between like fast forward or, high speed and like slow motion and stuff like that. So I think that's one of the reasons why I think like this is peak Guy Ritchie. Like this is like the quintessential perfected form, because it's like, it's the garage band with like crappy instruments and a sucky drum kit that like got together and made like a fantastic album, and then you listen to him 10 years later and it's just like overproduced garbage, I guess it is that thing of like there's a saying which I can't think of right now because it's late, when you have less, you do more. Sometimes you have to think outside the box and be a little bit more innovative. I think that's also fun for like younger filmmakers to like, what can I do? How can we make this look cool? How can I put my stamp on this? How can I figure out what my style is? Yeah. In the
really fun.
The intro, like you mentioned, when you saw this and you were really into it, it was when you were like thinking of, getting into like making films and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think that is, this movie totally makes sense for that. And like when I was younger, there was a period where I was like kind of interested in doing something like that too. And this was a movie that really made me feel that way. And I think it's because it is like so expressive with just the most minimal tools. Like you can watch it and you can imagine if I had a camera and I had the people to do it, that you could make this, you know, like it's not.
Yeah.
There's no special effects in it. There's one special effect that I learned from watching the DVD, and it's not even that interesting.
What was it?
So the scene where Gloria wakes up from the couch and fires that gun, and it's like in slow motion. I guess because of the way the high-speed footage works, it was just super dark. So like you couldn't actually see anything, and they had to use some digital effects to like make her visible in the scene.
Oh,
yeah, like not really interesting. You would never know, but like they explained, like we had to like get her body from this shot and like paste it in and make it look right and stuff like that.
I like that though. I usually, when there are special effects, I know we've talked about this before, it kind of kills it. Like when it's, especially when they're digitally like plugged in after, like, I'm not a big fan of effects. I don't think they work a lot of the time, like digital effects.
They can definitely work if you don't. I think if they are working, you don't realize them. Like one example that I didn't know for a long time was Zodiac. You've seen David Fincher's Zodiac before?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So that movie has a ton of like fake CG backgrounds. So like when they're outside walking on the street and stuff like that, like they're actually in front of a green screen and they just kind of redid all that. But like
awful.
But it looks really good. Like it actually you wouldn't notice. And that was like a very functional thing. Like there's a clear reason why they did that. Whereas like you know, the years like, I don't know, 2003 to 2008 were like the absolute worst period of time for digital effects because like The Matrix came out and people were like, oh my God, we got to make effects. And then just every movie had this dog shit CGI in it that. And
everything was fucking 3D for so long.
Yeah, that was Avatar's fault.
What did I see that was 3D? And I was like, there's absolutely no reason that this movie should be 3D. I think there were like 2 effects, which should, it was just this novelty that wore off, I think, very quickly. Thank God. I don't think they're really doing that much anymore.
No, it's dead. I think they just had to move some TVs.
Are we done talking about the characters? Because I don't think we are done, I guess. But I just wanted to mention, where the fuck are the women in this movie? Where do they live in this neighborhood? There's one exotic dancer. There's one like old broad card dealer type of like, don't bullshit me fellas kind of gal. And then there's Gloria, who's literally hiding and like not visible. That's the whole shtick with her. I think those are the only times women. There's even when at the pubs, there's not a woman to be seen in the shot. Where are they?
Yeah, I don't know. There was, another trivia fact. Originally, they did have a girlfriend character for Eddie, and they did film it, but they cut it out because they're like, meh, we don't need it. I mean, I can't imagine that really would have been like some fucking empowering role or anything like that, but yeah, no, definitely not a lot of, like, no women in this movie.
I imagine that role was probably like, Eddie, shut your girl up. We gotta go do some crimes. And he was like, hold on, bird. I gotta go fix these. Fix all my problems.
Bring in the money that you spend all shopping with all of the other women that are not in this movie. That's where they all are.
Yeah. You better keep up appearing. If you're going to keep getting your nails done, Papa's got to bring home the bacon. So shut up. I got to go steal some shit. That's probably what those scenes looked like. I feel bad for whoever that actor was who was cast as his girlfriend and was completely cut out of that movie.
Yeah, that would really suck.
Like, it's probably somebody who's not known. She's probably like, oh, my big fucking break. I'm going to be in this feature film.
I think it might have actually been like a model or something like that. That was.
Oh, that makes even more sense.
Whoa, okay. Supermodel Claudia Schiffer was originally cast as Eddie's girlfriend. She completed filming, but was later edited out after negative test screenings. They're just like, get her out of here.
Claudia Schiffer?
Yeah, apparently. This is according to IMDb.
That's absurd. How old is she versus Nick Moran?
I don't know. Claudia.
No problem with an older woman. Just curious.
Okay, she was born in 1970. That movie came out in 98, so she would have been about the same age, actually. Because they're all in their like 30s in this movie, so.
She seems like so much older for some reason. Anyway.
I mean, she was like famous for a lot longer.
Yeah.
Probably because I'm guessing as a model, she became famous when she was like 16.
Yeah. Jesus, that's so gross. I hate that. I'm glad she got cut.
Why is it gross?
I just hate... Okay. As an actor who has training, who works my ass off to try to even get an audition...
She just kind of rolled in on her looks.
Models. And like you see casting calls and it's like looking for actors must be between 5'7" and 5'10", no more than like, and your weight has to be between 130 and 144 pounds. I'm like stuff like that. And you're like, you're not looking for an actor though. You're looking for a model who can maybe act. So whatever. It's like, maybe I have a little chip on my shoulder. Fuck putting models in movies. Hire actors. Hire actors. All these guys, okay, like the like there were nice looking men in this, but there's like a bunch of like old giant dudes, like little weaselly dudes who like no hate on them, like that's fine, but the one woman who was going to be in this is going to be a supermodel. And like it's like these guys are kind of losers, but it's like she's a supermodel.
Yeah, that is. I am kind of trying to picture how this movie would have worked with that character because, like, again, I'm thinking about his dumpy ass apartment. You know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's like I said, I was really into him when I was younger. The gals sometimes like that. It's kind of a bad boy.
I mean, she probably would have been like hanging out with Eddie to go after Sting. I think that would have been the long game there.
Ooh, I like that version of this story.
Yeah.
Daddy Sting. I forgot he was in this when he first showed up.
Yeah, he's good in this. I don't. Mm-hmm. I guess Sting does have a bit of an acting career. Mostly, I know of Dune, but he's good in this. I like how his son's life is on the line. There's that scene where Vinnie Jones shows up to like be like, look, your son's gonna die if you don't give up the pub, and he's like, you tell Harry to go fuck himself, and I'm not doing it, and he's just like shitty to his kid the whole time. But again, like Eddie is a bit of a brat too, so he sort of like kind of deserves it. You're like, you just
time to grow up, Eddie.
Yeah
I really liked that scene with Vinnie Jones and Sting, because the contrast between how Vinnie Jones treats his son, like just this little precious thing, and Sting's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
He's got to learn a lesson.
By getting...
He's that kind of dad.
Getting murdered.
Yeah. You got to learn. How long can you coddle your kids, right? I say from my parents' basement.
So there's a couple other characters that are good in this. Nick the Greek. I love Nick the Greek. He's like this sort of like small-time criminal guy who, acquires goods and sells them and stuff like that. And he's kind of like the bridge between kind of all of the characters, I guess, except for the drug dealer robbers. But he's fun. He's just like...
Yeah.
He just has a funny line when Tom buys the guns and he's like, I want to look mean. And he's just like, you look really scary.
Yeah, he was a good character. I didn't really remember him so much because he just kind of pops in and out. But he's great, actually. He really moves the story forward, actually. He's pretty important to the plot.
Yeah. One weird thing about this movie, what the fuck is up with that cell phone he's got? Like in one of the opening scenes when you first meet Nick the Greek, he's like, complaining about the price of something, and then Tom's like, I'll throw in this phone, and it looks like a box of McDonald's fries. I don't know if it's supposed to look like that or if it is deliberately supposed to look like that. And I was on Google. I was like actually trying to find information about this phone, and I couldn't find it.
I don't know, maybe it was a very English thing for a very limited time. I didn't ever see a phone like that in Canada ever once.
There's the weed growing crew. They're just a bunch of stoner idiots, with the exception of like Winston, who's kind of like the dad and is just sick of their shit.
Yeah, I really like Winston, actually. I think he's pretty funny. Just his irritation, his level of irritation all the time with these morons that he's dealing with was really funny. Like, it wasn't overdone. It was just exactly how it feels like to have like a really irritating roommate or housemate or something. So good.
And he's like totally justified in his irritation, because like multiple times in the beginning he's like, you guys need to lock that gate, we can't keep letting these people in, it's a liability, blah blah blah. And then like, oops, it all comes true.
Yeah, he's just cleaning up after everyone's messes the whole movie.
Yeah,
right to the end.
Yeah, and I guess like in the end he sort of gets away. Like, everybody dies, and then he just kind of gets in the van and drives away. And like, I don't know what he does with his life at that point.
Turns it around.
Yeah. Coincidentally, I was flicking through Netflix the other day, and Netflix now does the thing, and I hate this, when you like are just going through things, it'll start auto playing like scenes from it. And it was like this new movie, and there was a British detective guy talking to someone, and it was that dude. And I was like, holy shit, I have not seen that guy in anything ever since that. And then coincidentally, he was in that.
I feel like I want to know more about some of these actors. I feel like in Britain they have so much TV and so many movies, and BBC does so much, and there's so many series, and actors just can make such a like livable career in Britain. And I want to know like who's the big shot, and who's like a regular working actor over there right now of all of these guys that were in this. Because obviously, like, we all know who Jason Statham is, and Sting, and Vinnie Jones. But yeah, these other guys, like, I'm like, what are these guys up to? What have they been doing? Because, yes, some of them are recognizable from other things popping up here or there. But it made me want to look deeper, find some of their other work that they've done.
Yeah, it's probably just all, like, British stuff we haven't heard of. That would be my guess.
British series.
What's a series?
Like how they do. It's like a season. Like series 1 on the BBC. Don't you ever watch like any of those?
Yeah.
Or sometimes they'll show them on CBC, because it will be like a CBC like BBC production or something. There's lots of British people on CBC right now. Lots of murder mysteries, procedurals.
Coronation Street every Sunday.
Okay. I had no idea how intense people were about Coronation Street. And last year at the theater that I work at, there was a Coronation Street tour. Like, just some of the actors were touring. And it sold out. People were nutso for them. And I was like, I know of Coronation Street. It's been on in the background. I don't follow it. But I was like, holy shit, I didn't realize it was so, like, still such a big thing.
I fucking hate Coronation Street. But you know what? It's nothing to do with the show itself. Like, I've caught glimpses of it, and it's like, it's a soap opera. It's been running for a long time. But when I was a kid, my mom would always like do a bunch of cleaning on Sundays, and I always just hated Sundays generally. I still do, because it's the day before Monday. So like Sunday has always been just like a bad time. So I just have like so many memories of like my mom kind of angrily vacuuming the house with like Coronation Street turned up really loud, and that like that like fucking theme song is just ingrained into my brain. So like that music to me is just like, you have to go to school tomorrow.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. So it's a bad show.
Oh. Yeah, fuck Coronation Street.
Taking a stand. Other characters, I guess. Rory Breaker, he's cool. I like him. He's got an afro. He's funny.
He was funny.
His poor coffee table keeps getting fucked up by Nick. That was a good bit.
It feels like Rory does just sort of pop in really late in the game, though.
Yeah. Okay. There's 2 plot holes in this movie that I've finally observed after years of watching it. And one is Rory Breaker and people's like awareness and understanding of him, because right before the card game, they go to the Samoan pub, and this guy runs out on fire right before they walk in, and they actually ask Rory Breaker to turn the volume down on the TV, and he says no, and it's like this little bit. But then Tom goes to sell the weed, and he has a conversation with Nick the Greek, who's like Rory Breaker, and he's like, oh, fuck that guy. And like, he clearly knows who he is. And then he has the conversation with another guy in a bar, and that's with the subtitle scene where he's describing the events that led up to the guy getting set on fire, and just like no awareness that is the same guy. Like, oh, the guy, he lit a guy on fire in this bar. We walked into a bar around that same time, and a guy walked out on fire, and then there was this black guy with an afro that didn't want to turn the TV down. Like, it just kind of, it's this weird unacknowledged thing where like clearly in that moment they don't know who he is, but then they also totally know who he is from reputation.
I mean, did they say black guy? Could have been Gary with his perm. I
guess, yeah. No, I'm pretty sure they do point out that he's a black dude at some point in those conversations. And like Soap also knew who he was. So that doesn't make any sense. And I've been emailing Guy Ritchie about this, and he's not getting back to me. They said, stop contacting us. We don't care.
We want to re-edit of this.
Yeah, I want a special edition.
Yeah.
Okay,
do some reshoots.
Here's the other stupid plot hole, just so I can get it out there. Eddie apparently has a magic ability to read people. That's why he's good at cards. So he can just read people's reactions. Now, Harry wins the card game because he cheats. He knows what cards Eddie has, which means, shouldn't Eddie be able to read that reaction?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that almost kind of meaningless? Like, he should know that Harry knows something.
Yeah, I agree with you. I watched that scene twice, actually, because I was thinking the same thing. Like, they even do a close-up of the eye with the pupils dilating. And you're like, oh, well, Eddie's obviously observing this. But Eddie does try to back out of the game a couple of times when Harry's trying to convince him that he's going to give him the loan to keep playing. And it seems like Eddie's like, no, not into it. But that Harry's he's saying without saying it, like, yes, you're fucking continuing on with this game. So that whole scene, I watched it a couple of times. So what you're saying, plus that sort of pressure of him to keep playing, which I hadn't noticed before, did confuse me a little bit.
Yeah, it's also not entirely clear in that scene if I don't know if he would have actually been allowed to like not keep playing. You know what I mean? It kind of does seem like he was totally forced into it, which sort of I don't think this Harry guy has a lot of integrity.
No,
he's kind of a scumbag. Did you know they actually reshot the ending to this? There was a different ending before the one we got.
Yeah. So what was that ending like? Because I think this is such a great ending. I think it's a perfect ending. But what did it look like before?
So from what I read that a week ago that I've probably forgotten, I just wrote down, the boys take the money and run, and Chris is going to go after them. So I think basically what happens is like the whole shootout with Harry happens, and they got the money, and then they kind of leave, and then like Chris is sort of like gonna go after them. Like, you're left with the impression that like they got the money, Chris knows they got the money, and he's gonna kind of go after them eventually. And they did test screenings and then went for the one they have. Yeah, and this ending is great. I love this ending.
Yeah, it goes on so long too, like with them trying to call them and getting pissed off at each other with their cell phones. And Tom leaning over the bridge, like
with the phone in his mouth.
Yeah, it's so great.
And then like you get the freeze frame and that music starts playing. It's
exactly. Yeah. Perfect. It's so goofy. I thought like actually from the point where like the Greek music is playing and they're like shit's about to go down, from then on, I thought it was, I'm not a big like action movie kind of action scene person, but I thought it was done so well. So just like, I felt like the movie, well, there's nothing in this movie that was really slow or lost my interest, but in terms of like the ending, that felt like that was, here we move into this next act. And all of that was just played, I thought, so well. There was so much tension in that scene. It was like, I was like really holding my breath like, oh shit, because I couldn't remember what happened to anybody in that scene. So it really held my attention and really got me like, I was so invested by that point. I was really into it.
Yeah, it's a really good ending in a couple ways, I guess. Like, one is it's sort of like, it does kind of wrap things up in this way where, Vinnie Jones shows up and he's got the bag, and like you think like he's going to give them some money, so you're like, oh wow, this is like kind of interesting, and then it turns out it's nothing. But then oh wait, we have these like really valuable guns, and then it turns into that kind of funny scene where they're like trying to call him and all that, and it is like, it's an ambiguous ending, but it's kind of ambiguous about like a sort of stupid detail. I mean, it's not, it is like 500,000 pounds or something like that for the two guns. So that is significant, but like the main plot has been wrapped up, so kind of like, it's not like fucking Inception with the top spinning where you're like, what actually happened, and you get into an argument. You're just like, who knows, it's it's funny.
Yeah. And it just brings it back to these four kind of idiots that we've been following this whole time.
Yeah. They made a TV show of this like 2 years later. I watched an episode because they're on YouTube.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was it worth watching?
It's not bad. So it's not like, it's not the same characters. It's totally different characters. Like, it really is kind of just like thematically the same thing. Like it's these four guys who are buddies, and this guy who's like a big criminal boss guy kind of gets them into trouble and stuff like that. And, it's got a bit of a converging plot thing. I watched one episode and it wasn't bad. I might seek out the others. However, the episode on YouTube, whoever uploaded it accidentally had that like camera stabilization effect turned on, which has this really weird effect of like making everyone's face like locked to the center of the frame, and everything else just kind of awkwardly moves around it. Yeah, that was strange. So I didn't get a good feel for like what the show actually looked like, because it just was really strange and surreal to watch.
Ew. Yeah, I don't like that. I feel like what works for me so much in this film is like the chemistry between the cast. So I probably wouldn't necessarily personally be interested in watching the series if it isn't the same cast or even the same characters, but it's kind of cool that they went that way. I mean, this was such a huge like hit, right? Like, this really put Guy Ritchie on the map. Like, everyone I knew who was into film was like, oh, have you seen Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels? It was a movie that everybody I knew was talking about and was like, you have to see this movie. So I guess just stop trying to make TV shows though out of movies. Stop doing it. Just leave it alone. If it's good, just let it be good.
I was expecting it to be really bad, but I was pleasantly surprised that it was like a generally okay thing. I mean, mostly because like it's not the actual show. Like, it's just vaguely stylistically similar in terms of like plot and characters and stuff like that.
I guess if you're going to do it, maybe do it that way.
They made a Snatched TV show, but that was like, really? Like this TV show came out like 2 years after the movie or something like that. So it was clearly like within the same thing. But the Snatched TV show came out in like 2017. I have no idea what that's all about. I'm going to guess it's garbage, but who knows? Maybe it's good. Well, I think that's about it for Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, unless is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrel character analysis.
Yeah.
character review.
We should rate each character out of 10.
Yeah. This film holds up big time. I think it's still great. I think if you haven't watched it before, or if you haven't seen it in a long time, for sure watch it. It's fun. It's funny. It's got action.
There's no women.
There's no women. Well, there's like a woman with her top off. So the woman you do see, she's got her boobs out. The other one is literally hiding under blankets. Bunch of hot dudes. Lots of English stuff. Yeah, I give it 10. I give it like 8.5 out of 10 British stuffs.
Yeah, I love this movie. It's great. Everybody watch it. It's good. 10 dills out of 10.
Great. Okay, so next week we are going to move into a 3-part spooky movie series. It's not a series, but the first one we're watching is part of a series. We're going to watch Scream. So that'll be interesting. If you have anything to say to us that isn't mean, you can email us at xpostwatcho@gmail.com, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at xpostwatcho. Let us know what you think. Do you have any movies you want us to look at? Tell your friends how great we are. Share the love. Bye.